Chapter 16. Rebirth. Sunny felt something waking up inside of him. With a startled cry, he clutched his chest and stared into the darkness, trying to understand what was happening. The feeling was not painful or unpleasant, yet it was like nothing he had ever experienced. It was as though his soul was being shaken awake, infused with strange new energy. However, that energy did not come from some outside source. Rather, it was coming from within, as though it had always been there, sleeping. The energy filled every fiber of his being. Sunny felt his emotions becoming clearer and sharper. Then, his body began to change too. He felt as though a miniature star was burning in the center of his chest. Waves of heat were radiating from it, slowly reaching his stomach and shoulders, then his arms and legs, then his hands and feet. Under that heat, his bones, muscles, organs, and blood vessels were being rebuilt and revitalized. Sunny felt like he was being reborn. He was becoming stronger, faster, healthier. It was euphoric. With each second, his transformation was becoming more profound. New confidence settled in Sunny's heart. He was not a weak, frail street kid anymore. He was not as vulnerable against anyone who would wish to bully him as he was in the past. With his powers awakened and his will tempered by the horrors of the first nightmare, he was now someone you would not want to cross. After some time had passed, the star burning in his chest finally cooled down. The heat was replaced with a soothing coldness. That coldness washed over Sunny's body, taking away all the aches and discomforts that had been accumulated there over the years. Then it moved up, reaching his brain and finally his eyes. His vision strangely doubled. He could still see the void populated by an endless pattern of stars, but he could also see something different. A silent, calm, dark sea, illuminated by a lonely black sun. From his previous knowledge, Sunny knew that this was his so-called Sea of Soul. But he also knew that it was supposed to look quite different. For starters, it was supposed to be much more lively. The star hanging above, the visual representation of his soul core, was supposed to be burning with bright light, filling the soul sea with a warm, blinding shining. However, Sunny's soul was dark and lightless. That's strange. He took a look at the black sun. At a closer examination, it actually turned out to be transparent. It's just that with no other major source of light around, the star appeared to be as dark as its surroundings. Also, no one was supposed to be here except for him. It was his soul, after all. But Sunny had a nagging feeling that somewhere just beyond the periphery of his vision, hidden in the darkness, shapeless forms were constantly moving. No matter how he turned his head, he couldn't catch a clear glimpse of them, and yet the feeling would not go away. Not wishing to waste any more time on this right now, Sunny turned back to the black sun, and finally spotted two spheres of light orbiting around it, as though caught in the soul core's gravity well. A subtle smile appeared on his face. These were his memories: Silver Bell and Puppeter's Shroud. Later, there would be dozens of such spheres here. If he was lucky, he would even acquire an echo or two. The spell's voice suddenly pulled him out of the Sea of Soul. Awakening aspectability. This is it. The moment of truth, Sunny thought. Divine aspect or not, his immediate future still depended on the first aspect ability he would receive. His role in the dream realm would be based on its characteristics. If it was a combat ability, he would be most useful on the front lines of the bloody battles against the nightmare creatures. If it was tied to sorcery, he would likely become a powerful but fragile ranged fighter. If it was something having to do with utility, he would be a vitally important part of the behind-the-scenes workings of the dream realm. Utility abilities were also extremely valued in the real world, where Awakened performed many tasks that kept it going. If he was lucky, he could even become a healer. Healers were very rare, and as such, sought after specialists. Aspect ability acquired. Aspect ability name, Shadow Control. Sunny hurriedly summoned the runes. He wanted to go to the description of his new ability right away, but then decided to give his overall information a look first. Name, Sunless. True name, Lost from Light. Rank, Dreamer. Shadow Fragments, 12, 1000. What is that? Where the rank of his soul core was supposed to be written, a mysterious shadow core appeared instead. Sunny looked at it, blinking. He had never heard of anyone having a different kind of core before. Was he that unique? This enigmatic shadow core would certainly explain why his Sea of Soul looked so strange. And also, he moved his eyes down, noticing the shadow fragments counter. Usually, they were supposed to be an indicator of the number of soul shards consumed. However, it was nowhere to be seen. Do I actually have a completely different progression path than all awakened? The idea was as exciting as it was frightening. Not having to fight for resources with anybody else was an incredible advantage. Most of the human society in the dream realm was built around the acquisition of soul shards. If he had no need to gather them to evolve, not only would he be able to become more powerful with incredible speed, he would also be completely self-sufficient. On the other hand, he had no idea how to acquire these shadow fragments. However, he had gotten 12 of them somehow already. So whatever it was that he had to do, he had already done it in the first nightmare. I'll have to explore this carefully. Satisfied with this decision, Sunny continued to study the runes. Memories. Silver Bell. Puppeteer's Shroud. Echoes. Attributes. Fated. Mark of Divinity. Child of Shadows. Aspect. Shadow Slave. Aspect rank. Divine. Aspect abilities. Shadow control. Aspect ability description. Your shadow is more independent than most. It is an invaluable helper. What is that supposed to mean? Sunny held his breath and began to read the description again, but at that moment, a new set of runes appeared just below it. Simultaneously, the spell's voice resounded in the black void. All power has a price. You have received the floor. Your floor is... Sunny read the runes, and his eyes widened in horror. Oh no, 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 no. Chapter 17. 3 simple words. He closed his eyes, then opened them again, hoping that the runes would disappear. Please, be gone, please! But the runes were still there, shining slightly, as though mocking him. Floor. Clear conscience. Floor description. You cannot lie. Sunny stared at these 3 simple words, feeling like there was a bottomless abyss opening right beneath his feet. The spell, which was usually frivolous with its descriptions, decided to be straight and on point this time. There were only 3 words. They left him no room to maneuver. Can't lie? I can't lie? Me? How am I supposed to live if I can't lie? Sunny's very survival was predicated on his ability to deceive and outsmart other people. Even the spell itself congratulated him on his treachery. Without the ability to lie, he wouldn't be able to achieve anything. Not to mention, his heart suddenly felt as though it was about to stop. If he could only tell the truth, how was he supposed to hide his true name? Wouldn't anyone be able to turn him into an obedient slave by simply asking a couple of innocent questions? Shh! Sunny was about to scream and curse, but at that moment, the spell spoke again. Wake up, lost from light. The black void spun and disappeared. Sunny opened his eyes. The armored ceiling of the police station's vault hung above him. No one would call its aesthetics beautiful, but to him, it was the most majestic sight. Only now did he realize how much he had missed the real world. It was safe and familiar. There were no monsters or slavers. Well, at least officially. There was no constant fear of torturous death. It was home. The cold that had crept deep into his bones during the nightmare was gone, taking with it all the pain that his wounded body had been enduring day after day. His feet and wrists were not in agony. His back had forgotten the bite of the whip, and he could even breathe without feeling the sharp edges of his broken ribs cutting deeper and deeper into his lungs. What a blessing! The sudden disappearance of pain, coupled with the new vitality that permeated his body, almost made Sunny cry. I really survived. He slowly looked down and then froze, breathless. On a cheap plastic chair placed beside his reinforced medical bed sat the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. She had short raven black hair and icy blue eyes. The flawless skin was smooth, supple, and as white as snow. Actually, this was Sunny's first time meeting someone as pale as he himself was. However, while Sunny's pallor looked strange and unhealthy, the beautiful stranger was nothing short of striking. The woman seemed to be in her late 20s. She was wearing a dark blue uniform with silver epaulets and black leather boots. The jacket of her uniform was casually unbuttoned, revealing a black tank top beneath. Currently, she was stretching her arms above her head, clearly bored and sleepy. The gesture forced the thin fabric to tighten, provocatively accentuating her full breasts. Mesmerized, Sunny almost missed the fact that there was a shoulder insignia on the woman's left sleeve. There were 3 stars on it. 3 stars, huh? He thought, distracted. 3 stars means an ascended, huh? Wait An ascended? But before Sunny could fully digest the meaning of this word, he realized that the woman was staring at him too. "What are you looking at?" she said, not a gram of humor in her voice. Sunny blinked a couple of times, embarrassed. Then he opened his mouth and answered, "Your breasts." A second later, his eye widened in absolute horror, because he wasn't planning to say those words at all. His mouth moved on its own. A wave of terror suddenly drowned his mind. The woman slowly smiled with a dangerous gleam in her eyes. Then, without any warning, she moved her hand and slapped Sunny across the face. Sunny's whole body was turned around. If it wasn't for the restraints holding him in place, he would have probably flown off the bed. For a moment, he even saw stars. But it could still be considered getting off lightly. An ascended. The woman was an ascended. She could have torn his head clean off with a flick of a finger. Why did he have to offend someone so powerful, of all people? Meanwhile, the woman cleared her throat and crossed her arms. "Are you awake now?" Sunny held his numb cheek and carefully nodded. "Good. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't just say anything that comes to your mind. Especially to girls. It's not like you haven't seen a girl before, right? Say thank you. I definitely will not," Sunny thought. But instead, his mouth moved on its own, and he said, "I've seen plenty, but no one as beautiful as you." Then he flinched back, his face as red as a lobster. The woman stared at him for a few seconds, and then burst into laughter. "I see you haven't met a lot of awakened then. By awakened standards, I'm below average." Sunny glanced at her with doubt. The woman shook her head. "As your soul core develops, the body gets rid of all its imperfections. So it's hard to find an unattractive awakened, especially among the stronger ones. Live long enough, and you might just become a flower boy yourself." Then she gave him a thorough look and added, "In any case, since you're awake, welcome back to the land of the living. Congratulations on surviving your first nightmare, Sleeper Sunless." Sleeper Sunless. That was how people would address him now, at least in the short span of days until the winter solstice. After that, he would either return from the dream realm as an awakened, or not return at all. It felt strange to have a title put before his name. In the past, Sunny was rarely even addressed by name. People mostly called him things like boy, punk, brat, or hey you. But now he even had a title, Sleeper Sunless. Actually, the correct term was dreamer, but humans had their own set of words for those infected by the nightmare spell. Carriers who had just finished their first nightmare were called sleepers, because of how they interacted with the spell. Basically, once his spirit enters the spell, his body was going to fall into slumber. That slumber would continue for days, weeks, or even months, however long it takes him to escape the dream realm. Hence the term sleeper. Once he escapes and becomes an awakened, he would live his life normally during the day and return to the dream realm every time he falls asleep. The awakened were called the same by the spell and the humans. That word was also sometimes used as a general term for all carriers. Then, if he were to decide to enter a second nightmare, and manage to survive, he would become an ascended. People called them masters. Masters could enter and exit the dream realm as they wished. Some even chose to never come back there at all. More than that, they traveled between the worlds physically, not just in spirit. And then above the masters, there were saints, those who had conquered the third nightmare and earned the right to call themselves transcendent. They were as powerful as demigods, and even more rare. Not only could they travel between the real world and the dream realm, but they could also take others with them. But coming back to masters, the beautiful woman stood up and approached the reinforced medical bed. With practiced moves, she began to undo the restraint holding Sunny in place. "I am Ascended Jet. You can call me Master Jet. These past 3 days, I was on watch duty due to your nightmare. Right, before I fell asleep, the policeman told me that an awakened would arrive in a few hours to monitor my condition. To kill the nightmare creature if I die and let it through." Sunny was unwilling to open his mouth, terrified that all sorts of truths would come spilling out. But there were things he simply had to know. "Master Jet, I have a question. Go on. Why would a master be put on watch duty? Isn't it below your pay grade?" Jet gave him a dark look. "You're smarter than you seem. Recently there was a lot of gates opening in this sector. Most of the local awakened are either wounded or occupied with the cleanup. Or dead. It's always like that close to the winter solstice." She opened the final restraint and took a step back. "Plus, there's not a lot of awakened who, like me, directly work for the government. It's by far the least lucrative or glorious career one of us can choose. Would you abandon wealth and fame to work abysmal hours and risk your life fueled only by altruism and sense of duty. Sunny wanted to say something flattering. Instead, he looked Master Jet right in the eyes and smirked. Of course not. I'm not an idiot. Damn this damn floor. Damn. She stared at him with a humorless expression. Sunny thought that he was going to get sacked again. But instead, Jet smiled. See, I was right.